Towering over our earliest history and folk tales of antiquity is the shadow of a beast, the wild man, Ape-man, or the Bigfoot. Cryptozoological wonder and a deeply psychological phenomenon bordering on the paranormal. But is it the remnant of a lost race, born of an unholy experiment, or the offspring of a tragic biblical figure, cursed to walk the earth apart from man? Ancient tribes interpreted the sudden appearance of this creature as a terrifying sign, and modern sightings leave witnesses shaking, confused, and changed forever. Even if you haven't seen one for yourself, the semblance and knowledge of this type of boogeyman may be burned deep within all of us, dwelling in the chasm between civilization and the untamed chaos of the wild. The wild man of the woods, the lurking giant, is an archetype that appears in a multitude of mythical accounts, even as far back as the Sumerian mythos. This is the oldest written story that we know of, being nearly 4,000 years old. It's based on the exploits of the hero Gilgamesh, and he may have been a real historical figure, living a few centuries before it was written down. Gilgamesh was a mighty warrior, and likely a Sumerian king. The text states he was massive in stature, at 11 cubits in height, or 17 feet, being 2/3 god and only 1/3 mortal. He became a nuisance to the pantheon of gods above him, and he was a notorious conqueror and womanizer, and the citizens of Uruk appealed to the gods for help. And the deities, in fact, heard their cries and created a new being to combat the mighty Gilgamesh. One who was savage, wild, and powerful. The new creature was named Enkidu. He was raised by animals, and being similar in size to Gilgamesh, he was a formidable opponent to the warrior king. His appearance was that of a hairy man's, dark fur covering his heavily muscled body. The city of Uruk soon regretted bringing this being into the world. He turned out to be too violent and unpredictable to control. And when Gilgamesh became aware of their plight, he made plans with the city's people to tame the beast. And when he confronted him, Gilgamesh overpowered him, becoming the city's savior. The defeated Enkidu then becomes friends with the king, who was eventually instructed by the gods to fight Kumbaba, a terrifying monster who lived a long journey away in the cedar forest. The wild man and the god king became inseparable traveling companions on their way to the infamous battle, and working together to slay monsters and foes on many adventures. At one point, they once again mobilized the wrath of the gods, and they struck Enkidu down with a fatal illness. Devastated and lost at his friend's passing, Gilgamesh then became terrified of death and obsessed with finding the secrets of immortality on more quests. But that sacred knowledge ultimately eluded him. And the end of this story takes an unsettling turn and tells us that the ghost of Enkidu comes to visit Gilgamesh to describe the misery of life in the underworld. Now, a tale this old may be actually quite young in comparison to some oral traditions. Tribes that are tens of thousands of years old may have kept records of their encounters with a race of beings that demonstrated profound respect for them. Native American tribes in the northeast US and Canada have regarded the large hairy man as a physical animal, but in many other places outside these regions, they see him as an interdimensional being who slips between the many layers of reality at will. And he wields intense psychic powers that add to his elusive abilities. Many native tribes will also tell you that he knows when he's being sought and pursued, and chooses when and where to appear. One such tribe are the Hopi. Hopi elders see the hairy man as something bigger and more powerful than a flesh and blood creature. He is a harbinger of possible destruction, a warning to the peoples who see his form and gaze upon his countenance to turn from their ways. The Iroquois share this view, often calling this Bigfoot-type creature a messenger from the Creator, trying to warn humans of their transgressions against nature and existence. And their belief is that this warning extends to all of humankind at large. Throughout other North American tribes, he is the wise one, an elder brother, and is treated with awe and respect. But a number of natives insist that it should be feared because of its connection to another monstrous entity. The Algonquian tribes believe Bigfoot to be a form taken by the Wendigo, a savage and cannibalistic demon. The legend recounts men who nearly starve, turning to human flesh to satiate their hunger, and in doing so, are transformed into the infamous creature. The Wendigo embodies the temptation within the human heart to consume his fellow man when there is famine. To them, the hairy man represents the impulse and reveals itself as a reminder of our capacity for evil. This idea has made a return in modern psychology. Carl Jung spoke and wrote extensively on the unconscious parts of the mind, things that we cannot accept as a result of functioning within civilization and all of the cultural traditions. According to Jung, these urges, emotions, and ideas are shoved beneath our conscious awareness into the depths within us and lurk in a space that he called the shadow. Now, these forces do not stay put and often burst forth into our consciousness through dreams, visions, apparitions, or a more general warping of our perception. Is it possible that many of the boogeyman we see and hear of are projections of our own evil? Or could it be that we're simply aware of these external monsters, and they have become a parasite within us and outside us? Being actual flesh and blood in some cases, as well as ethereal and spiritual forces. I believe this is highly possible, and also think that one does not negate the other. This line of thought is interwoven into many religious themes, but according to one Mormon pastor, there was no mistaking his encounter. He stumbled upon a very real creature who articulated to him his shocking story of biblical origin. His claim comes from a passage in Spencer W. Kimball's book, Miracle of Forgiveness, which records an account claiming Apostle David W. Patton met a large, hairy man who identified himself as Cain. The alleged encounter took place in 1835. Patton was traveling to a friend's home in the Utah wilderness when the creature revealed itself. Quote, "I suddenly noticed a very strange personage walking beside me for about 2 miles. His head was about even with mine as I sat in my saddle. He wore no clothing, but was covered with hair. His skin was very dark. He said he had no home, and that he was a wanderer in the earth. He said that he was a miserable creature, and that he had earnestly sought death, but he could not die, and his mission was to destroy the souls of men." Unquote. He goes on to make the extraordinary claim. This towering beast then introduced himself as the biblical Cain, the brother of Abel, the brother that he killed. The book of Genesis tells how God reacted to Cain's sin by giving him a mark and making him wander the earth and find no rest for the rest of his days. But what was this mark? Was his appearance changed? And was Patton truly exchanging pleasantries with the world's first murderer? After the revelation of the stranger's origin and his intent, he rebuked him in the name of Christ and commanded him to leave, to which the stranger departed immediately back into the wilderness. These are just some of the fascinating possibilities of the origin of this creature. Is it truly flesh and blood walking among us, or is it an ethereal being, a boogeyman? But tell me what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe for more on myth, mystery, and conspiracy, and I'll see you all in the next one.